Sophia. You know, I just read this amazing story about two people who reconnected after 30 years because of social media. Isn't that incredible? It's like, without these platforms, they might never have found each other again. Sure, that's a nice story, Sonia. But for every heartwarming reunion, how many friendships or even relationships are we losing to the endless scrolling and superficial interactions? I get what you're saying, but think about it. Social media lets us connect with people from all over the world. We're no longer limited to just the people we see every day. I have friends in Tokyo, Berlin, and Buenos Aires. I mean, isn't that bringing us closer? Maybe geographically, but emotionally? I don't think so. How many of those friends in Tokyo, Berlin, or Buenos Aires would actually be there for you if you needed help moving furniture? Or just needed someone to talk to? Okay, fair point. But not all connections are about deep emotional bonds. Sometimes, it's about finding people who share your interests, your hobbies, or even your sense of humor. It's like a global community at your fingertips. But are those communities real? Or are they just curated highlights of people's lives? I mean, think about it. We're spending more time staring at screens than looking into each other's eyes. We're so busy sharing every moment that we forget to actually live it. I don't know, I think that's a bit harsh. I've seen social media do a lot of good too, raising awareness, mobilizing people for causes, spreading important information. It's not all just selfies and memes. True, but how often do we see people actually mobilizing, versus just hitting a like button and feeling good about it? It's easy to think we're making a difference from behind a screen. But are we really engaging, or just numbing ourselves to real action? So, you're saying we should all just delete our accounts and go back to writing letters? Not exactly. I'm just saying we need to find a balance. Social media isn't inherently bad, but when it starts to replace real-life interactions, it becomes a problem. People are lonelier than ever, despite having hundreds of friends online. Doesn't that tell you something? Maybe. But the world is changing, Jordan. We can't just ignore the ways technology shapes our lives. Instead of blaming social media, why don't we teach people how to use it better? Like, maybe we all need a social media diet, a little less screen time, a little more face-to-face. That's actually a good idea. It's like with anything, moderation is key. But let's not kid ourselves. Too many of us are addicted to the instant gratification of likes, shares, and comments. And that's where it gets dangerous. It's not about how many followers you have, but how many real, meaningful connections. You know, I read somewhere that our brains actually release dopamine, the pleasure chemical, every time we get a notification. It's no wonder people get hooked. But isn't that just like any other tool? It can be used for good or bad. It's up to us to decide. That's true, but tools don't come with a built-in algorithm designed to keep us hooked. Social media companies want us to stay online as long as possible because that's how they make money. They're literally profiting off our attention and our addiction. But isn't that just capitalism? Every business wants to make a profit. It's up to us to be aware and make conscious choices about how we spend our time. It's not that simple. We're talking about psychological manipulation here. These platforms are designed to exploit our basic human need for validation. That's not a fair playing field. So what do we do then? Shut down social media entirely? That seems a bit extreme. It's like saying we should ban cars because some people get addicted to speeding. No, Sonia. I'm not saying that. But we do regulate cars. We have speed limits, seatbelts, and drunk driving laws. Maybe social media needs some guardrails too. Something to protect us from its more harmful effects. I see where you were coming from, Sophia, but who decides what's harmful? Everyone uses social media differently. For some, it's a lifeline, like for people in isolated communities or those with disabilities who can't get out much. You're right. It's not black and white. But we can't ignore the studies showing links between heavy social media use and anxiety, depression, and poor sleep. We need to address those issues, not just sweep them under the rug. Agreed. But let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Social media has also been a force for good. Think about all the movements that have gained traction because of it. #Moteh, Black Lives Matter, those voices might not have been heard without these platforms. Absolutely, I'm not denying that. But again, it's about balance. For every positive movement, there is also misinformation spreading like wildfire, cyberbullying, and people feeling worse about themselves because they're constantly comparing their lives to others. So maybe the answer isn't less social media but smarter social media. Educating people on how to use it responsibly, being aware of its impact, and knowing when to step away. I can get behind that. But it's easier said than done. People need to feel empowered to step away and not feel like they're missing out. That fear of missing out, or FOMO, is real. It keeps people glued to their screens. Yeah, I've been there too. You see everyone else's highlight reel and start wondering if your life is boring in comparison. It's tough. But I think we can learn to be more mindful about it. To realize that what we see online isn't the full picture. Exactly. Maybe the real issue isn't social media itself but how we perceive it. We need to remember that behind every perfect post is a real person with real struggles. No one's life is as perfect as their Instagram feed. So, we need to remind ourselves that social media is just a tool, not a mirror of reality. And maybe take a break now and then, look up from our screens, and connect with the world around us. I like that, Sonia. Maybe instead of a social media diet, we should think of it as social media mindfulness. Be aware of what we're consuming and how it's affecting us. Sounds good to me, Sophia. And speaking of mindfulness, how about we take this conversation offline and go for a walk? No phones, just us and some fresh air. That sounds perfect. Let's do it. But don't think you're getting out of being tagged in my next post. Gotta keep those connections alive, right? Only if it's a picture of us out in the real world, living our best lives. Deal. And maybe, just maybe, we'll inspire someone else to do the same. Now that's something worth posting about. Absolutely. Let's go make some real memories.